So, what if I told you that the biggest barrier to speaking English fluently isn't actually your vocabulary size or, your grasp of grammar rules, but it's actually what happens to your brain chemistry when a barista just simply asks you, like, for here or to go?
Oh, I mean, it really is the ultimate test, right?
Yeah.
You can have 1,000 flashcards perfectly memorized, but the moment that social spotlight hits you, all that data essentially just, well, it evaporates.
Yeah, completely disappears. So, welcome to this deep dive, everyone, and especially to you, the learner out there tuning in. We know you put in the hours, you study the rules, you do all the
Well,
reading.
like putting in the work, sure.
Exactly. But you're probably searching for that, like that specific breakthrough to take your skills out of the textbook and into the actual messy, unpredictable real world. So today, our mission is to unlock the mechanics of speaking English confidently.
And confidently is the key word there.
Totally. We're looking at a really fascinating mix of sources today. We've got a brain training guide from Go Natural English, a highly relatable video transcript from Daily English Talk, a U.S. State Department manual on everyday American conversations, and a brief audio listening exercise note from Oxford Online English.
Yeah, and by synthesizing all these sources, a very clear picture emerges for us. I mean, the mission here isn't to cram even more vocabulary into your brain. The goal is to move you from studying a language as like an academic subject to actually living it
Right.
without that paralyzing panic that usually comes with real-world interactions.
So let's start right at the foundation then. Before you even, open your mouth to order a coffee, fluency actually begins internally. Like it is a psychological game first.
Oh, absolute.
From Gabby Wallace's Go Natural English Guide, the very first step she tackles is how you think. And the biggest cognitive trap that learners fall into is translating in their head.
Yeah, and the mechanics of mental translation are incredibly taxing on your brain. When you try to construct a sentence in your native language, right, and you hold it in your working memory, and then you try to swap out the vocabulary word by word for English, you're effectively doubling your cognitive load.
Which is exhausting.
It really is. It demands way too much processing power. So Wallace points out that you have to train yourself to think in foundational English concepts right from the jump. Instead of some complex layered thought, you train your brain to just generate, I'm tired, or where's my phone?
It makes perfect sense when you think about it like watching a dubbed movie on a terrible lagging internet connection.
Oh, that is a great way to look at it.
Right, because when you translate in your head the audio of what you want to say and the real-time visual of the person standing in front of you, they just don't match up.
Yeah, there's that lag.
Exactly. That buffering lag makes the conversation completely awkward. You're just standing there, and the other person can practically see, like the little loading icon spinning in your eyes.
Yeah, and you have to eliminate that buffering because the brain also learns much faster when it identifies patterns and rhythm. I mean, fluent speech has an inherent musicality to it.
Right.
So by repeating short, simple phrases aloud with their natural stress patterns, your brain bypasses that whole translation filter. It starts internalizing the rhythm of the language rather than just, the raw data of the vocabulary.
Okay, that makes sense. She also mentions adopting a mindset of being curious, not critical when mistakes happen, which I think is great. But this is where I actually want to challenge one of her main points a little bit.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
So one of her top tips is to adopt a fluent identity. Like she explicitly suggests looking in the mirror and saying, I am a fluent English speaker in progress. Now, hold on. Is this just that, like, fake it till you make it self-help fluff?
I mean, it sounds like it, right?
Yeah, because telling myself I'm a fluent speaker doesn't magically teach me how to conjugate irregular verbs.
I totally hear the skepticism, I do. But we actually have to look at how the brain allocates its resources here. This isn't about magic affirmations at all. It's about a real biological process called synaptic pruning.
Synaptic pruning. Okay, break that down for me.
So the human brain is a massive energy hog, and it is ruthlessly efficient. If it doesn't think you need a piece of information for survival, it prunes those neural pathways to save energy.
Ah, I see. So if I think of myself as just a student who, isn't really ready to speak out loud yet.
Exactly. If your internal narrative is, I am a student studying for some hypothetical future, your brain categorizes that English vocabulary as low priority data. It just files it away in the back for a distant test.
Wow.
But when you claim the identity like, I am an active speaker today, you are literally priming your nervous system. You signal to your brain that this information is essential for immediate daily survival. And your brain responds by reinforcing those specific neural pathways, keeping that vocabulary right at the front of the filing cabinet. So identity actually shapes your biology.
Okay, wow. So the biology actually tracks. If I tell my brain I'm a speaker, it keeps the words handy. But that actually brings us to the most critical limitation of this whole theory.
Which is?
What happens when a real-world interaction completely hijacks that biology? Let's look at the story of Tom from the Daily English Talk transcript. And as we go through this, I really want you listening to realize we have all been Tom.
Oh, we absolutely have.
So Tom walks into a quiet coffee shop. He feels confident. He's got the mindset dialed in, right? He's primed and ready, telling himself he knows the language.
His foundation is solidly there.
Exactly. He walks up to the counter, and the barista asks a super standard, everyday American question. For here or to go? Now, Tom knows these words. For here means you stay. To go means you leave. Basic stuff.
Very basic.
But the spotlight hits him, the pressure spikes, and his brain simply abandons him. There's this massive, stretching silence. And when he finally answers the question, for here or to go, he just blurts out, yes.
Which logically is a completely nonsensical answer to a multiple choice question.
It makes zero sense. And the barista is, understandably confused. So she repeats the question, a little bit slower this time. Tom is now actively panicking, right? So his brilliant solution is to just say yes again, but significantly louder.
Because obviously volume equals comprehension, right?
Obviously. But the disaster peaks when she asks for his name for the cup. He is so deep in a panic spiral that his brain just hands him the only English word floating around his consciousness, and he tells her his name is coffee.
Oh, no.
Yes. They write it on the cup, and when they call out, "Coffee is ready," Tom actually walks up and accepts his new identity.
That is painfully relatable.
Yeah.
But, breaking down the exact phenomenon of what happened to Tom there is crucial. Because his failure had absolutely nothing to do with his English proficiency.
Right, he knew the words.
His vocabulary was perfectly adequate for that interaction. The issue was purely an environmental trigger. As his co-host Lily points out in the transcript, the nervous feeling literally ate his words.
But how does a feeling eat a word? Like, what is actually happening in his head in that moment?
It's the classic fight, flight, or freeze response. When Tom felt the pressure to perform flawlessly, his amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, perceived the barista's question as a literal physical threat.
A threat. Just ordering coffee.
Yes. And this triggers a massive spike in cortisol. Now, cortisol is designed to help you run from a predator, but it does this by shutting down the non-essential parts of your brain. Specifically, a high cortisol spike temporarily blocks access to the hippocampus, which is exactly where your memory and language retrieval centers are located.
That's crazy.
So Tom's brain literally locked him out of his own vocabulary. He froze.
So all the studying in the world, all that synaptic pruning and priming we just talked about, it's completely useless if you get stressed at the cash register and your hippocampus just goes offline.
Precisely. You cannot wish a biological stress response away. Panic is just an inevitable part of the language learning curve, which means you really need a tactical rescue plan. You need a way to lower the cortisol and buy your brain time to reboot.
And the sources suggest this starts with a very small grammatical reframe, using the word can.
Yes, addressing ability. When learners hit that freeze state, their internal monologue usually defaults to, "I can't speak English."
Which is terrible for your confidence.
It's a total confidence killer. It just reinforces the panic. So the transcript suggests swapping it to something like, "I can speak a little English and I can learn more." It grounds you in reality without triggering a shame spiral.
I love that. And from that grounded state, they introduce a set of survival phrases. I actually look at these as like linguistic airbags.
Oh, linguistic airbags.
Yeah.
That analogy works perfectly on a mechanical level.
Right. Think about it. An airbag in your car does not prevent you from crashing. You are still going to hit the bumper. But the airbag deploys instantly, automatically, to prevent a fatal injury.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In a conversation, these phrases don't prevent you from making a mistake, but they deploy to stop the interaction from dying entirely. You don't have to construct them on the spot. They just pop out to protect you. So let's look at how these actually work in a real scenario.
Okay, let's play it out.
Imagine you're Tom. The freeze happens. The silence is stretching out. Instead of letting the silence become a failure, you deploy the first phrase.
Let me think for a second.
That phrase is incredibly powerful because it gives this scary silence a job.
The job.
Yeah, when Tom was standing there, the silence was an enemy. By saying, "Let me think for a second," you instantly reframe the pause as a thinking break. It signals to the native speaker that you are engaged and processing, not just ignoring them. The social tension immediately diffuses, which lowers your cortisol.
But what if they just spoke way too fast and your brain couldn't catch the audio at all? You deploy the next airbag. Could you say that again, please? Exactly. Native speakers prioritize speed over clarity constantly. If you pretend you understood when you didn't, the conversation will eventually derail anyway. Asking them to repeat forces the other person to manually slow down their own speech rhythm, and that gives your processing speed a second chance to catch up.
Okay, but let's say they repeat it and you realize you genuinely just don't know the vocabulary word for what you want to say. You hit a wall. Instead of abandoning the conversation, you use the third phrase. How do you say this in English?
I love this one because it completely flips the dynamic of the interaction. Instead of a roadblock, you've created a collaborative moment. Human beings generally love to be helpful. It makes them feel competent and smart.
It totally does.
So by asking for the word, you invite them into your learning process, which builds instant rapport rather than embarrassment.
But let's be real, sometimes the mistake just happens anyway. You say something totally wrong, your face flushes red, and you just want the floor to swallow you whole. That's when you deploy vulnerability. I'm still learning.
Honesty is the fastest way to relieve social pressure. Saying, "I'm still learning," reminds the native speaker that you are attempting something highly difficult. It completely removes the expectation of perfection from the room.
And finally, the quick fix. The backspace key. Let's say you do what Tom did in a different story, where he accidentally called his male boss mom on the phone.
Ouch.
Yeah, brutal. Instead of agonizing over it, you just use, sorry, I mean, bye, sir. You acknowledge the slip and immediately overwrite it. No big apology necessary. If you have these specific phrases deeply memorized to the point of an automatic reflex, you will never be trapped in that coffee shop panic again. You have the mechanical tools to survive the freeze.
Okay, so our linguistic airbags are installed. Our biological mindset is primed. But survival phrases really only get you out of trouble. What happens when you actually want to drive smoothly? That's when we hit the gap between the textbook English you learned and the street English you actually encounter out there. Right, it's the difference between learning to drive in a completely empty parking lot versus merging onto a busy highway. The U.S. State Department Manual on Everyday Conversations heavily contrasts formal textbook dialogue with everyday reality.
Like in the empty parking lot of the textbook, everything is perfectly enunciated and formal. Good morning, Professor Austin. How are you doing?
Right.
But on the highway, it's completely different. The tone shifts, the vowels stretch out. It's, hi, Ellen, how's it going?
And notice how different the cultural small talk is, too. The manual highlights phrases that don't translate literally, but act as social glue. Long time no see, or what a small world, or the phrase, I know how you feel.
Which are so common.
They are. And these aren't just vocabulary lessons. They are cultural handshake rituals designed to establish instant empathy.
But I feel like the biggest shock on that highway is the pronunciation. The Oxford Online English source specifically warns learners to tune their ears to how native speakers utterly demolish words.
Demolish is a good word for it.
Like going to becomes gonna, want to becomes wanna, and the craziest one, what do you just melt entirely into wadaya, like what does you think?
Linguistically, this is known as connected speech, specifically assimilation and elision. And it's important to understand why this actually happens. It's not just laziness or slang.
It's not.
No, the human speech organs are trying to conserve physical energy. Saying, what do you, requires a lot of muscular effort to hit every consonant perfectly and stop the airflow. To maintain the rapid rhythm of a sentence, the brain takes a physical shortcut.
So it's just being efficient.
Exactly. It blurs the boundaries of the words together to save breath. If you are only listening for pristine robotic syllables, real-world phonetics will leave you completely lost.
But this raises a huge question for a learner, I think. Should you focus on mastering that formal, rigid, perfectly enunciated English first? Or is it better to just jump straight into saying gonna and wadaya so you sound more natural immediately?
You absolutely must understand the formal foundation before you adopt the informal deviations. You have to know the rules before you can bend them.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, if you start throwing wadaya into a formal business email or a job interview because you think it sounds fluent, you will severely misread the room. True fluency is about adaptability. You build the house with formal grammar, but you decorate it with informal connected speech based entirely on who is in the room with you.
That adaptability extends to how you ask for things too, doesn't it? The manual highlights this concept of social softening, and it's a massive part of American English.
It really is.
Native speakers seem allergic to just telling people what to do directly. Instead of saying, bake some cookies, they say, how about baking some cookies? Or why don't you get the milk?
This gets into the fascinating cultural psychology of the language. In many cultures, social hierarchy is actually built into the grammar itself. But American culture, at least on a conversational level, heavily values the illusion of egalitarianism.
An illusion of it, yeah.
Issuing a direct command like, get the milk, feels abrasive because it violates that sense of social equality. It sounds like you're pulling rank.
So you phrase it as a question to soften the blow.
Exactly. White Oats
Yeah.
creates the polite illusion that the other person has a choice in the matter, which preserves social harmony while still getting the task done.
They even do it when disagreeing. In one of the shopping dialogues in the manual, the salesperson offers a white sweater. The customer doesn't just say, no, I don't like white. She says, I think I'd rather have it in blue.
I'd rather have. Right. It is deferential to the salesperson's effort. It avoids a harsh negative, but it still clearly states the boundary. Understanding the why behind these softening phrases is what actually moves you from just knowing the words to achieving true cultural fluency.
And finally, a massive part of that cultural fluency is the specific idioms that literally litter everyday speech. Things that make zero sense in a dictionary without the cultural context.
Oh, idioms are the Wild West.
Right. Calling terrible traffic rush hour, checking the wind chill to see why it feels so much colder than the thermometer claims, taking a red-eye flight because you fly all night and your eyes are bloodshot the next morning, or asking a friend, let's go shoot some hoops.
Yeah, if you try to literally translate shoot some hoops, you're going to be very confused.
Yeah.
It requires the cultural context of casual street basketball.
Yeah.
And a red-eye isn't a medical emergency. It's just a cheap overnight ticket to New York. You have to learn the culture to learn the language.
So let's bring this all together for you, the learner. Because we have traveled quite a distance today, from the biology of your brain through a disastrous coffee shop visit and out onto the fast-paced highway of real-world English. What we've ultimately discovered is that fluency is not a math problem. It is not just a raw vocabulary count.
No, it is equal parts psychological state and social skill.
It's claiming your identity as an active speaker so your brain doesn't prune those pathways. It's understanding that a cortisol spike will block your vocabulary, so you install those linguistic airbags like, let me think for a second, or I'm still learning, to manage the pressure and keep the conversation alive.
Spot on.
And it's tuning your ear to the messy, energy-saving rhythm of connected speech while knowing exactly how to soften your own words to navigate the cultural waters.
The most important takeaway from all these sources is that perfect is the enemy of fluent. Mistakes are not failures. They're just data points.
Just data points.
Yeah, when Tom told the barista his name was Coffee, it wasn't the end of his English journey. It was just a highly memorable data point that taught him he needed a better way to manage his stress response.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today. Think about how you speak your own native language right now, today. I guarantee you use filler words. You stumble over your sentences.
Oh, all the time.
You forget the names of things you use every single day. You lose your train of thought, and you use survival phrases in your native tongue constantly without even realizing it.
Nobody speaks their first language with pristine textbook perfection 100% of the time. We all navigate the mess.
So what if fluency in a second language isn't about achieving some mythical state of flawless, unbroken perfection? What if true fluency is simply having the confidence to keep talking when things inevitably go wrong? To deploy the airbag, laugh at the mistake, and just keep moving? So the next time you walk into a cafe and the barista asks you a question and your brain completely freezes, just smile, take a thinking break, and keep going. Because even if you accidentally tell them your name is Coffee, you're still one step closer to truly living the language.